Hi, this is Minute Women Podcast. We're back for our third episode. My name is Linnea.
I'm Grace.
And we're your hosts for the next 45 minutes or so.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a little bit coldy. Have a little bit of that, winter snuffly nose.
Yeah.
But just pushing through.
Yeah, I think I gave that to you.
Yeah,
Last
you may
episode,
have.
I was hoarse. This episode is just a snot factory.
It's just a snot factory.
We're off to a great start.
A great start. So what are we talking about today, Grace?
So today we are doing another one of the new Heritage Minutes, but I really wanted to do this one because I think this person is super, super interesting, and I don't think she's really well known.
Okay.
So it's Kenojuak Ashevak.
I have no idea who that is.
Perfect.
Okay.
You're going to learn so much about her.
Okay.
Everybody's going to learn a lot about her. So she's an Inuit artist.
Okay.
So you've probably seen some of her artwork. She's really known for very graphic kind of depictions of animals, typically, in Inuit life.
Okay.
She had a stamp in the 1970s.
Oh.
So she's pretty well known.
No, this is like coming back to me.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I may have seen this minute or seen something of hers.
Yeah, so the Heritage Minute, actually her granddaughter plays her in the Heritage Minute,
that's
or at
neat.
least narrates it. I think she just narrates it, actually.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
it's her and her family, and it's a little bit about their life in the Northwest Territory, them arriving in Cape Dorset, and then it's about the Cape Dorset Art Co-op.
Oh,
And
where is Cape Dorset?
So I believe it's now in Nunavut,
Oh, okay.
but at the time, that would have been Northwest Territory.
So not coming to kind of the provinces they stayed in the territories.
Yeah, so
Okay,
Cape
cool.
Dorset is still in the territories. But to start off, just going to stand on my soapbox for a minute.
All right, I'm ready.
So there was a poll conducted by Historica Canada in 2018, and the poll asked the people who took it, essentially the goal of the poll was to see how well Canadians could recognize the accomplishments of famous Canadian women.
Oh.
And the poll presented names of 15 significant Canadian women.
Who were they? Are you going to tell me? Do I get to play the game?
I don't have the full list,
Okay.
but I have some of the results.
Okay.
So largely they come from the world of politics, civil rights, arts. Participants were asked to identify why each woman was on the list.
Okay.
And only 40% of participants could not identify any of the women's accomplishments.
Okay.
So the most known woman on the survey, do you want to guess who the most well-known famous Canadian woman is? Or at least they were able to be
Yeah.
like, I know why you're famous.
Emily Carr.
Correct.
Yeah.
37%.
Yeah.
Second,
Oh.
she's significant to the Maritimes.
Oh, is
also
it-
in the arts.
Is it? Oh no, I was gonna say Viola, but is it Maud?
Yes.
Oh,
so
Maud Lewis.
Or not Maud Lewis, sorry,
Oh.
Lucy Maud Montgomery.
Oh, Lucy Maud Montgomery.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the third was Nellie McClung, who is
Oh,
the suffragette.
she
We'll
is,
do an
yeah.
episode on her later on.
Hopefully, that's a good episode.
Viola Desmond was the most known woman of color, and
Yeah.
she's at 13%, and that's likely due to the fact that she's on
On
a
a
$10
$10
bill. They're also doing a play about her here in Halifax.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I did, and it's the world premiere. This play is like homegrown in Nova Scotia and hasn't been like this wasn't written somewhere else and performed anywhere else. This is going to be like shown first live in Canada.
Yeah, what's it
here.
called? Do you remember what it's called? It's.
Oh, I don't.
I feel like if we're gonna promote it, we should probably know the name of it. Let me
I don't.
see.
But yeah, it's about her story. The pictures are really beautiful that they have of it. It's something. It's just I feel like it's one word. That's very.
Controlled Damage. That's what it is.
yeah,
So
okay.
if you're in the Halifax area in the next few weeks, go see Controlled Damage.
At Neptune, yeah.
So the most underrepresented demographic of women was Indigenous women. So there were only 3 Indigenous women who appeared on the survey, and they were one of the co-founders of the Indian Group 7, so like an artistic group
Okay.
of people. You had a diplomat, and then you have Kenojuak Ashevak.
Okay.
Their significance to Canadian history and culture was only able to be identified by less than 3% of people who did the survey.
Yeah.
So participants were also surveyed on more general questions about Canadian education and the representation of women. The results of the poll determined that 70% of participants believe Canada can improve upon its education about female accomplishments. And here on Minute Women, we get the unique opportunity to do that, which is super fun and exciting.
Yay!
Yay! So today we can start that process. Hold for wild applause.
I'm excited.
So I'm very excited. So today we're going to do the life and achievements of Kenojuak Ashevak, all-around badass Inuit woman.
Very cool.
So Kenojuak was born on the 3rd of October in 1927.
Okay.
And I apologize if I get any of the names wrong. There are a lot of Inuit words, like place names and people names. I apologize if I get those wrong. I'm going to do my best.
Yeah, full disclaimer.
Full disclaimer.
We might pronounce things wrong sometimes.
A lot of the time.
Please let us know, and we will make a full apology.
Don't harp on our accents.
Yeah, I know what it's like when people call me Linnea. Not a fan.
Well, it's really your own fault for picking such a complicated name.
I didn't pick it.
Oh, you didn't get to pick your name?
No.
Okay. So she was born in the Ikarasak camp in South Baffin Island in the Northwest Territory.
Ooh.
Her mother's name was Silaki, and her father's name was Kenojuak Ashevak, an Inuit hunter, leader of their camp, shaman, and fur trader. So part of his shaman abilities was to shapeshift into a walrus.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the significance of shapeshifting is to the Inuit culture, but walrus is an interesting choice.
Do you think you picked that, or do you think that's, like, picked for you?
I'm not going to read into it.
All
I'm
right.
sure that someone, if someone wants to let us know, let us know. If you know anything about that, it'd be super interesting. Kenojuak remembered her father as a kind, intelligent, benevolent man. However, he came into conflict with other members of the camp when Kenojuak was 6. The exact nature of the conflict is not well known, though it may have been due to an argument between himself and Christian converts in the camp. But it resulted in the murder of her father.
Oh, I'd say that's some pretty heavy conflict.
Yeah. So there's definitely like Christianization taking place. And
Yeah.
I'm sure if he's a shaman, then that's not particularly well looked upon. But
Right.
I don't, the exact nature of the conflict isn't really well known.
Right, but murdered.
But murder is the result.
More murder.
There's always murder. And as always, everyone we're talking about is dead.
Welcome to Minute Women.
Actually, this one's a bit more recent, so some of the people might be alive. But anyways.
Oh, well, that's good. Some of them.
Some of them, who knows? Murder. Silaki was left to raise Kenojuak and her younger brother and sister alone. Silaki moved her small family to live with the children's grandmother, Kawisa. From Kawisa, Kenojuak learned how to sew traditional Inuit clothing from seal skins and adorn them and other items with inset designs she made. To create the inset designs, Kenojuak cut out simple shapes from seal skin. Then another smaller piece of skin was dyed in a contrasting color and laid on top of the first piece. The two pieces were sewn together so that the colored piece of skin showed through the piece with the cutout. So kind of like, almost like stained glass.
Yeah, that's
kind
like
of
fancy.
Yeah. Despite their domestic hobby crafts, Kenojuak stated in an interview in 1983 for Inuktitut magazine that her grandparents discouraged her from other arts like drawing. So she's encouraged in like home economic arts,
Right.
but not in other kinds of art.
Yeah, her creativity, I guess, is more so encouraged in the things that she should be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So at 19, Kenojuak was arranged to marry a man named Johnny Boy Ashevak. Johnny Boy, or Johnny Bo, I should say, was a local hunter. Kenojuak initially passionately resisted the marriage. After their wedding, she would throw rocks at him whenever he approached her. Her feelings
I like her already.
Her feelings toward him softened over time, though, and the couple was known for their deep love for one another.
Oh.
They had 11 children together, 7 of whom lived. Wait. Their marriage got off to a rocky start
Why?
because she threw rocks at him. Sorry, that was worth cutting mid-sentence to get that joke in.
Certainly was. I laughed.
It certainly
I
was.
enjoyed it.
All
Mark's
right.
laughing. Our producer Mark is laughing.
Next line. They had 11 children together, 7 of whom lived past infancy, and they adopted 7 more. So, big family. The family continued to live in a semi-nomadic lifestyle of the Inuit, moving between various summer and winter camps to take advantage of the different resources throughout the year.
14 kids.
Yeah,
The 16
at
of
staggered
them.
times, yeah. We don't know how many they ever have in the house at any one point, but yeah, a lot of people depended upon them. So this included the camp Kikto, roughly 7 miles from Cape Dorset.
Oh, cool.
Cape Dorset had been the location of a Hudson's Bay Company trading post since 1913. The settlement grew from there and became a permanent settlement filled with southerly goods and technologies, which were distributed among the local inhabitants. By the mid-20th century, the changes made at Cape Dorset were dramatic and represented a drastic shift in the lifestyle of the Inuit living in the Canadian Arctic. The hunting camps had been prevalent across the Arctic, which were often composed of several families and were inhabited by no more than 40 individuals. These hunting camps were becoming increasingly hard to maintain due to the declining numbers of caribou. After the Second World War, the Canadian government adopted policies of centralization of Indigenous communities across Canada, consolidating dispersed reserve lands onto fewer and more central reserves. Between 1938 and 1953, Anglican and Roman Catholic missions constructed the settlement at Cape Dorset, including a school and a number of homes, and they also brought with them nurses, teachers, and government officials to encourage the permanent settlement of the Inuit. Moving to Cape Dorset represented the end of an ancestral way of life for many Inuit, and many resisted until there were no other options. The generation of adults who moved to Cape Dorset represented a group who had grown up during a time of nomadic living, but transitioned into a new sedentary way of life. And so, yeah, it's like the Canadian government purposefully trying to eradicate Inuit culture.
So that's what I was going to ask. Is this the eradication of that culture?
Yeah. So and it happens all across Canada.
Yes.
And so the idea is that if you can get them to settle, then they'll abandon all of their traditional ways of life and they'll become quote unquote good citizens.
Right. And so was that the hope of those like nurses and did you say teachers and stuff who were sent there?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it.
Right. Okay.
Trying to provide as many resources as possible to make people stay in one spot, and in their minds remaining in one place year round means that you're more easily watched by the government, essentially.
Right.
So they can keep tabs on you and make sure you're doing what good citizens do, quote unquote.
Okay.
It's not great.
Not great.
The arrival of government employees, such as public health nurses, changed Kenojuak's life forever. She had just given birth when a nurse arrived at their camp. The nurse tested Kenojuak for several diseases, and she was screened positive for tuberculosis.
Oh, okay. Like tuberculosis of her, like is it a lung infection or was it blood disease?
It doesn't say. It seems like she's like a carrier of
tuberculosis. Okay.
At this point, Kenojuak was forced against her will to leave her family and life in the north and was made to stay at Parc Savard Hospital in Quebec City, where she stayed for over 3 years from 1952 to 1955.
Yeah, my grandfather actually had tuberculosis, and at that time he was quarantined to a hospital in Halifax, which was quite far from where they were living, and he was put in a full body cast as to not let the infection out. So he was in cartoons when they're in a full body cast with like the things that hold up your arms and legs.
Yeah.
He and my great grandmother was just at home looking after 2 young kids. She had a stillborn baby at that time, just super tragic. And he's just in a hospital in a full body cast, not able to move or do anything.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Tuberculosis is not fun.
It's not fun, and I don't know exactly how sick she was.
Right.
We'll get into like her time at the hospital a little bit, but it seems like she was pretty sick at times.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's like, she would have died if she was left in the north, or if it's more like you're a carrier, so we're going to like treat you for it.
Right.
It's
we're going to give you
unclear.
our new age medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the baby she had just given birth to was adopted by a neighboring family, and several of her children died while she was confined to the hospital.
Oh, no.
Yeah. During this time at the hospital, Kenojuak fought against tuberculosis and narrowly escaped death several times. While she was hospitalized, though, she met the occupational therapist Harold Pfeiffer, who used art to assist the Inuit patients both pass the time but also make some extra money through the sale of their art. Pfeiffer taught Kenojuak to do beadwork and make dolls, as well as encouraged her to draw. Kenojuak's work was noticed by an early Inuit art promoter named James Archibald Houston.
Now, do I sense a future love interest in either of those men?
No.
All right.
Sorry, your spidey senses are a little off today.
It's because of the cold.
It's because of the cold, yeah. James Houston had studied art since he was a child and was educated at the Ontario College of Art, Académie de la Grande Chaumière. This is not a good episode for, second languages. Should really just do strictly English language things
We grew
from now
up in
on.
Nova Scotia where our
Nova Scotia.
French curriculum was pretty bad until recently.
Lax. Unless you're in like actual French communities.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
and he also studied in Japan where he studied printmaking.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so
That's
he had
cool.
always been inspired by the works of the Canadian Group 7, renowned for their works of landscape art. And after serving during the Second World War, Houston became discontent with urban living and set out to find his own Canadian landscapes to paint and sketch.
And so what was his, like, where is he from?
I think he's from Ontario.
Oh, okay.
Originally. Yeah.
So he's not Inuit.
No, he is not
Okay.
Inuit. In 1948, he traveled north by train to Moosonee, and from there was offered a flight via the Canadian Air Force to Kenojuak. While on the eastern shore of the Hudson's Bay, he first encountered Inuit art. And so, in a short film entitled Songs in Stone, An Arctic Journey Home, Houston stated the following. I see this guy coming up to me on the beach, fist out, clenched like this. And by this, he means like a fist in front of your face.
Imagine Grace waving a fist at me right now.
Very
because that's what's
aggressively and
happening.
menacingly. So fist out, clenched like this, and I thought this could lead to a punch in the nose. Instead of that, he opened his fist, and I see for the first time the first Inuit carving I'd ever seen. I took it. I was so excited by it. The following day, I went down to the HBC outpost, and this fellow, Norman Ross, who was the Hudson's Bay manager, I know this thing is 100 or like 150 years old. So I raised it up in front of Ross, and I said, and I opened it up like that. This is a very visual conversation that's being had.
Grace is shaking her fist and
We need closed
opening it
captioning.
over and over again.
And I said, how old do you think this is? Referring to the carving. He says, I don't know, maybe it was carved last night or early this morning, just for you. At first I thought, oh, how disappointing. And then I thought some more about it. You don't mean to say that there are people around here who can make things like this today, this marvelous thing I've got in my hand. And he said, yeah, sure, they made it for you. Well, the whole world opened up for me, and I thought anything could happen from this.
Life's simple pleasures.
I love that he's just a total outsider who's like so naive to everything.
A little art nerd.
Yeah, he's just like, this has to be like 100 years old. And then this dude's like, no, they like made it for
Like,
you.
do you want me to go back there and make you one?
We can like, yeah, like those people, they make those things all the time. It's just like, yeah, I guess they could make more of them for you.
Do you want like 5? Like,
Yeah, like he's totally uninterested. He's like, okay, whatever. This interaction set Houston's life in a new direction. He began collecting Inuit art in exchange for his own paintings or cash, and then would present them in southern galleries, fairs, or to dealers. He worked for several years for the Canadian Handicrafts Guild, which is the best guild. When I think guilds, I think like,
the handicraft.
when I think guilds, I don't know, I feel like it's like metal
The
workers.
Writers Guild.
The Writers Guild.
Like,
Yeah. Handicrafts. Today we're making snowflakes out of coffee filters.
next week, clothespin butterflies.
We've got many color pom-poms so you can make them super unique.
And pipe cleaners for the antenna.
And googly eyes.
Can't forget the googly eyes.
Yeah. After several years of collecting Inuit art and promoting its sale in the South, Houston was hired by the federal government as a federal service officer and was posted to Cape Dorset in 1954 to encourage the Inuit there to carve and make graphic prints, a technique Houston had taught some artists there.
So is he giving credit to the people who have made this, or is it just all kind of under one umbrella? He's like, these were just made by
No,
Inuit
so James is a
people
cool
here.
guy.
Okay.
James is a cool guy. So he is just acting as a middleman. So
Okay.
he's purchasing art from people in the north and then
Right.
he's selling it kind of like as an exotic thing. So it's
Okay.
not, you know, the most PC thing in the world, but he isn't bringing them down south and saying, "Look what I did." Like,
Oh, okay.
They're valuable because they're like unique and
Right.
kind of exotic to people that live in southern Canada.
Right. So he's not saying like, I made these.
No. So
Look
he's
at my
representing himself as a
hand.
dealer. Yeah, an
Okay.
art dealer. So Houston eventually became fluent in Inuktitut, so the language of the Inuit, and was given the name Somik by the locals, meaning the left-handed one.
Oh.
Houston is widely recognized for introducing Inuit art to the Western art scene.
That's
so
very
he's
cool.
Yeah, so he's kind of the first person outside of the Inuit community who's like, oh, this is actually like really amazing, and we should be, showing this alongside all other Canadian art.
Yeah, there's a beautiful display of Inuit art at the Rooms in Newfoundland.
Oh, okay.
In St. John's. It's
Okay.
The Rooms, a huge art gallery.
Okay.
And they have an entire floor kind of dedicated to different Aboriginal and Inuit artists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like are from Newfoundland or from
No,
all over Canada?
From all over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from all
That's
over
cool.
Canada. And there's some carvings like you're talking about. It's cool.
Yeah,
It's
it's
beautiful
cool.
stuff.
So Houston appreciated the art of Kenojuak, and when she returned to the North in 1955, Houston and his wife Alma encouraged her to keep producing art.
Okay.
Kenojuak adopted art as a means of supporting her family financially, as did her husband Johnny Boy, who began carving and drawing. So Kenojuak recalled in 2008, when I first started making a few lines on paper, my love, Johnny Boy, smiled at me and said, Inum, which means I love you. I just knew inside his heart that he almost cried, knowing that I was trying my best to say something on a piece of paper that could bring food to our family. I guess I was thinking of the animals and the beautiful flowers that covered our beautiful untouched land.
And to think she started off by throwing
Rocks at him. Tale as old as time. Eventually, the two would collaborate on pieces of art together. Kenojuak,
I love that.
I know, it's actually really sweet.
That
This
is
is the first time we've had a sweet kind of story.
There's not a plague yet. Well,
We've already had tuberculosis.
We've had tuberculosis, but
Yeah. So Kenojuak started by decorating sealskins and beading. However, she was encouraged by Houston to draw. Art media was gendered in the Inuit communities, with drawing and carving considered more masculine undertakings.
Okay.
And so it kind of goes back to what her grandparents were saying of like,
right.
those kinds of art aren't for women.
Yeah.
The types of art that you should do is like beading and sealskins.
Beadwork
like that.
and clothing and stuff. That's
Exactly. Kenojuak was pushed by Alma Houston, so James's wife, in particular to keep drawing. Kenojuak would state that she was not good at drawing or that drawing was man's work. But whenever Alma would visit her, the paper Kenojuak was left with would be filled with sketches. Through Alma, her work was sold to dealers, guilds, and the Hudson's Bay Company. It was only when James and Alma Houston asked people to do artwork that I started drawing and carving soapstone, Kenojuak later said. Her drawings would then be made into prints. In Cape Dorset, men were hired to hand carve the drawings of artists into stone. These reliefs would then be brought to Houston and later Terry Ryan, who was, I believe, the manager of kind of the art shop there. And they would be then made into prints. So paint and ink would be spread on the carved stone, and then the paper was placed on top of it to transfer the image. Each print would be marked with the signature of the artist, the stonecutter, and the art shop or co-op.
That's so cool. That's very
And they show that in the
cooperative.
minute. Yeah, so in the minute they show someone.
Yeah.
So she draws something, she brings it to a gentleman who hand carves it, and then they use like paint rollers essentially to roll like ink and paint on it, and then it's transferred. And that's what Houston had learned in Japan. So it's like a Japanese style art that's being brought to the people in Cape Dorset.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. In 1958, her first print, entitled Rabbit Eating Seaweed, was produced from a design.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a vibe.
Well, you know what? I've never seen a rabbit eat seaweed. So.
I haven't either, but I can picture it.
Yeah, we're becoming
clearly.
far more worldly because of this podcast.
Yeah.
We know so much more.
Rabbit eating seaweed.
Yeah. So it was produced from one of the designs on her sealskin bags at the Cape Dorset print shop. Shortly thereafter, several of her original drawings were reproduced as prints, making her work more accessible to a wider audience. So the reason that printmaking is really promoted is because it requires less time on the artist's behalf. So, you can do the drawing and then it gets carved and you can make a limited run of that print and you can sell more copies of it. Yeah. So it's more economical for the people that are living there.
Of course, yeah.
In addition to meeting the Houstons, Kenojuak's career was also propelled by the founding of the West Baffin Cooperative, an art co-op founded in Cape Dorset. So the following is taken from the co-op's website, just like a description of what it is.
Okay.
So it states, in 1958, discussions around the development of the co-op in Cape Dorset began in earnest after the printmaking shop began to take off. The project approach to the cooperative development, adopted by the Department of Natural Resources and Northern Development, involved presenting project plans to the community after the area's economic surveys had been completed and allowing the community to accept or reject the idea. So when the community decided to adopt a co-op program, they ended up deciding that they would have a two-objective program. So the program serves two purposes.
Okay.
On one hand, they wanted to encourage community members to participate directly in the economic development of their communities through cooperative ownership.
I'm here for that.
They're here to empower the people.
Asset-based community development.
Yes.
I'm into it.
You know all the buzzwords.
No, I've got a degree in that. Hire me.
Please hire her. She will be the best employee you've ever hired.
All right, let's not go that far.
Okay.
Let's not get crazy.
Let's keep expectations low.
Yeah, and then I can just, wow.
Here at Minute Moon, we like to keep expectations low.
Very low.
So the other half of their program, they sought to build kind of just skills development and a system of sustainability through educational programming for cooperative membership, management, and executives. This would be accomplished in order to improve understanding of the cooperative body of the co-op, its relationship to organizations, and cooperations external to the community, the roles and responsibilities of the members, including their levels of general technical knowledge.
This is awesome.
So
this is cool.
Yeah.
There should be a Heritage Minute just about this.
Yeah, and I will say the Heritage Minute it commits a good chunk of it to the actual co-op and talking about the co-op, but I think it's something that is so not known. Like, I did know a little bit about this just from like one Canadian history class I took, but everything else, like, this is such a fundamental like model for sustainability now, and Nova Scotia and this are actually kind of like the hotbeds for the co-op movement.
Yeah.
It's like really significant to Atlantic Canadian and Northern history.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
It's awesome.
So art was a big part of the skills development and system sustainability mandate of the Western Baffin Co-op. The Houstons and the co-op manager, Terry Ryan, lived in Cape Dorset and worked with the community to produce art. These pieces would then be sold and the profits brought back to the artists and the co-op.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah. So Kenojuak was a founding member of the co-op, and her art was instantly captivating to Southern audiences.
Do you have any idea like how old she is at this point?
So we're in the 50s now, and she was born in 1927. So she'd be in her late 20s, early 30s during this period of time. Yeah. I guess we're kind of getting into the 60s now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're like the late 50s.
Okay. So she's a woman. She's grown.
She's a woman. She's a mother. She's I almost said husband, but wife.
She's a wife.
She wears a lot of hats.
She wears a lot of hats.
So these pieces would then be sold and the profits were brought back to the artists. And Kenojuak's art was really popular. Christine Lalonde, an expert on Inuit art at the National Art Gallery, described how Kenojuak's work was viewed when it debuted in 1959, excuse me.
Okay.
She had her own sense of design. She was already willing to let the pencil go because she already had the hand and eye coordination to make the image she already had in her head. When you see her, you realize she doesn't use an eraser. She just sits down and starts to draw. This confidence was prevalent throughout Kenojuak's career. The depictions of animals and nature she became known for were representations of how Kenojuak felt, and not so much how the animals actually looked, which is represented in the Heritage Minute, where the narrator states, "I am a happy dancing owl." So in the Heritage Minute, they show some of her pieces of art and her actually making them, and she describes how she feels in the paintings, and she's painting she's drawing her most well-known piece, which is the enchanted owl, and she's saying that she's like a happy owl, which is like, it's really sweet. It's beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah. So Kenojuak further described her art-making process as long and thoughtful. Yes, it takes a long time to decide what to make. Often I have the pencil and paper ready in hand, and then I just sit there for a long time, trying to decide what to make. One never knows how well the drawing is going to turn out.
Oh.
Throughout the 1960s...
She just sounds the best.
She's really sweet. And if you watch interviews with her, so she never really learned English. This is mostly getting translated.
Wow.
So she's just this, like, very small woman, and she's just, like, so happy to be, like, talking to everybody. And she's, like, it's honestly, like, It's such a feel-good,
like the sweetest
interviews.
Little grandma ever.
Yeah, she's really sweet.
I love that.
And, like, also in the face of, like, her life was not easy.
Adversity.
The face of, like, so much adversity,
Yeah.
being taken away from your family for 3 years.
Tuberculosis, arranged marriages.
Yeah, it's, like, not an easy life, but you can just see that she's,
14 children.
like... Yeah, like, a lot of responsibility, but you can just see that she's just so happy to be making art.
That's
and
amazing.
It makes her so happy. Yeah. So throughout the 1960s, Kenojuak's prints and drawings became highly prized and sought after.
Wow.
In 1960, she created her piece, The Enchanted Owl, which is probably her most recognizable work. It's also the one featured in the minute. Mm-hmm. By 1962, she had garnered enough acclaim to attract the attention of director John Feeney. Feeney was a New Zealand-born director of documentary films. He worked with the New Zealand National Film Unit, the National Film Board of Canada, and made films and did photography in Egypt.
Wow.
He was nominated for 2 Academy Awards by this point. Feeney proposed filming a documentary about Kenojuak that would feature her life, the life in the Canadian Arctic, and the Western Baffin Co-op. The documentary was filmed over the course of 3 months, which Kenojuak found arduous and tiresome.
Such a diva.
Such a diva. It was so tiring at times, I threatened John Feeney that I would quit before it was finished. But it was impossible to quit because Mr. Feeney just wouldn't let me.
She sounds
She's
great.
like, I want to leave. No, you can't. Yeah. Damn it.
She's like, I'm done here.
I really don't want...
No.
Yeah, and it's like, it makes so much sense because she kind of goes on to explain why it's arduous. She was like, it was very tedious work. We had to keep shooting the same things over and over again, time after time, to the point where one just felt like walking out on the whole thing, which totally makes sense. Like, if you've never... Especially if you didn't grow up watching films.
No.
It would make no sense. It's like, what do you mean I have to walk from here to there again?
Right. And
like,
again,
what do you mean you didn't get the shot?
That Western culture coming in and
100%.
And it's like, this is the way that he grew up, like the director. Mm-hmm. This is the way that Feeney grew up, and this is the stuff he's been doing, so it's just natural to him, and for her, this is completely unnatural and out of the element.
Yeah,
so.
And it would, like, totally make no sense. It's like, what do you mean I didn't walk right? Like, what do you mean we have to do it again?
Yeah, I get that.
Kenojuak remembered being particularly furious when, during the filming, her children fell off of the sled. So there's a shot, and the children fall off the sled. I really gave it to him then, she said.
Safety first, Feeney.
So the documentary, which was titled Eskimo Artist Kenojuak, not a word we would use anymore, but that's what the film is called, was released by the National Film Board, and it captured the printmaking process as well as the artist's home life. You can actually watch it. It's free to anybody who goes to the National Film Board website, and I watched it. It's very interesting.
That's
actually.
awesome.
It was nominated for Best Short Documentary at the Academy Awards.
That's unbelievable. That's incredible. I love that. Well, feel-good story.
Feel-good story. It hasn't gotten worse yet. I mean, it got bad for a while, but it has gotten better.
Worse?
It's not going to get too bad.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing really tragic.
All right.
Like, sad things happen, but not tragic.
Okay.
While the filmmaking process was tiresome and artificial, the money she earned from it enabled Johnny Boy to purchase his own canoe and achieve his independence as a hunter.
Oh, Johnny.
I know. This was an added benefit to the family, which by this time had a daughter, Agio. I didn't really look up how to say the one. Whoops. And an adopted son, Ashevak. She's also credited the film with increasing her popularity in the art world. Kenojuak's financial success, however, was not always admired within her own community. The fact that she was a woman in her early 30s earning significantly more money than anyone else in the camp angered many of the men, but it did not prevent her from continuing her work. Kenojuak urged in an interview that she did not know exactly how much money her pieces garnered, as some of the earnings were given to her in cash and the rest of it was kept in the bank.
Right.
But she did not think that she was much wealthier than the rest of the people in her community. I don't seem to earn much more than anybody else, she said. What the film highlights, as do Kenojuak's reflections on it, are perhaps her most defining character as an artist. Despite her increasing acclaim and global recognition, she rarely desired to leave the Arctic or abandon her traditional ways of life. She and her family moved to Cape Dorset in 1966 so her children could attend school. However, the family did continue to occupy traditional camps as well. Kenojuak admitted the old ways of life were increasingly difficult to maintain, but she personally could do with or without the comforts of modern living. However, she confessed in an interview that she still preferred camp life to settlement living. Kenojuak increasingly traveled for her work. She exhibited her art across Canada, but also internationally. In 1969, she and Johnny Boy traveled to Ottawa to collaborate on a mural which was eventually hung in the Canadian Pavilion at Expo 70 in Osaka, Japan.
Wow.
In 1980, she traveled
That's
to
so
Rotterdam.
cool.
Yeah, she traveled to Rotterdam to present the Inuit print exhibition, which was opened by the Queen of Netherlands. In 1991, she went to Seoul, South Korea to attend the opening of an exhibition of prints and sculptures.
Girl had a life.
She had a life, yeah. And like,
Love
imagine
that.
like, so in 1980 is when she goes to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And then in 91, she goes to South Korea. So she's like not young.
No.
She's like in her 60s, I believe, by
Yeah.
that point. And
Yeah.
she's just like, I'm ready to go.
Oh.
When she was asked about leaving Cape Dorset and the surrounding area, she answered, I sometimes tell my children that it would be nice to live in the South if I could speak English. Then I would go down south to work where I could live comfortably. I like the city of Ottawa, and I never get homesick when I'm here. Of all the places I've visited, I like Ottawa the best. The Netherlands received a less favorable review from Kenojuak. She said it's always foggy, and the structure of the town was so strange. I just didn't feel comfortable there. Even if there appeared to be blue skies, it was still foggy, and there was water everywhere you went.
Yeah. It's Amsterdam
I don't
for
think
ya.
she'd like Nova Scotia very much.
No, I don't think Nova Scotia would be her
Very
thing.
similar vibe.
Yeah. Oh, she's funny.
She is funny, and that's the thing. Like, you watch her interviews, and she like clearly has such a sense of humor about everything, and she really doesn't take it all that seriously.
That's great.
It's just like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Throughout the 1970s, Kenojuak experienced some turmoil in her personal life. Her husband of 26 years, Johnny Boy, died in 1972.
Just of old age, or
I think so.
yeah.
She remarried a year later. However, her new husband passed away in 1977. And then in 1978, she married her third husband, Jonas
Girl,
Iju.
get it.
There's not much written about her later two marriages, however. Seemingly, the tabloids were not particularly interested in the romantic life of Kenojuak.
All right. Good for her.
Good for her.
Knows what she wants.
Knows what she needs.
She wanted another man.
Despite her considerable fame, Kenojuak never thought of herself as exclusively an artist, but rather considered her artistic career to be just one facet of her life. I don't put any aspect of my experience first as the main things, she stated in Jean Blonget's Kenojuak, a book-length study of her work. So it's a book about her called Kenojuak.
Very cool.
Kenojuak's unwillingness to view herself primarily as an artist is consistent with the traditional Inuit culture. Living conditions demanded that men and women develop competency in a wide range of skills in order to survive. What is conventionally considered to be a work of art is valued by Inuit people primarily for its usefulness, as a ritual item, as a piece of clothing, as a source of income. As Kenojuak told Blodgett, there's a lot of names.
A lot of names here.
The main reason why I create things is because of my children, my family. Although Kenojuak achieved more success than any Inuit artist before her, she remained firmly within the culture of the Inuit people. While she replaced her traditional igloo with a modern framed house, she did not give up her love for the outdoors. She traveled well into her 70s and 80s with Jonasi, her new husband, and 6 children to some of her old campsites to hunt and fish during the summer, living off the land as she did as a child.
Wow.
While family obligations limited the amount of time she devoted to her work, she never gave up drawing and carving. I continue to do so primarily for the future these works of art will guarantee my children, she noted in Kenojuak. When I'm dead, I'm sure there will still be people discussing my art. Kenojuak died of lung cancer in 2013. The Canadian press and art community mourned the loss of a pioneer and a visionary. By her death, her art had spanned an incredible range of mediums like drawing, carving, beadwork, printing, and stained glass. She was honored with the Order of Canada, the Order of Nunavut, and the Governor-General's Award for Visual and Media Arts, as well as several honorary doctorates. She has been featured on both national postage and currency. Her legacy continues through the continued work at the West Baffin Co-op and her family. In particular, her nephew, Tim, is an acclaimed artist in his own right, and the two were featured in a joint exhibit at the Art Gallery of Ontario. And her granddaughter narrates the Heritage Minute that Kenojuak is featured in.
You know you've made it in Canada when you get on a stamp.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, that's when you know, like, you have done something for yourself. Like, William Shatner, on a stamp.
Stamp.
You know? Like Justin Bieber.
Stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Viola Desmond. Stamp.
Order of Canada, get out of here.
Yeah.
You just need to be on a stamp.
Right? Yeah. Governor General's Medal. Pshaw.
Pshaw.
Stamp. That's when
Stamp
you're successful. Put us on a stamp.
Yeah, that's the life and times of Kenojuak Ashevak.
That was such a good, feel-good story.
Yeah, that was definitely more feel-good than our other 2 episodes.
Definitely.
Which is great.
She's
we need some brevity in life.
It's a girl power story, and she overcame some stuff, and I love it.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that as an artist, she really never took it so seriously. Nothing about it feels pretentious.
Yeah.
It's genuinely just like, this is how I'm feeling, so this is what I'm going to draw, and I'm only doing it because I love to do it.
And this is what I'm going to make. Today, I'm feeling like this, so I'm going to make this. And I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Grace.
No problem, Linnea.
That was a great one.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone listening. Make sure that you go and follow us, Minute Women Podcast, on Facebook and Instagram. We'd really appreciate that. And please let us know other minutes that you'd like us to cover. Let us know what you want to hear about here at Minute Women Podcast.
And wherever you're listening to this podcast, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.